You're listening to the Simply Flawsome Show, a podcast designed for you to listen, learn, and leverage. Please welcome your host, Zoe Turner.
The Simply Flawsome podcast today is coming to you from Rove Hotel in Dubai Marina. I'm very excited to announce our new partnership with Rove and thank them for the support for this episode and future episodes. This second season is all about celebrating incredible women, and I've got another incredible lady today who I'm speaking to. What you may know about today's guest is she is CEO of Bride Club Middle East. She's the founder of Club Media, and she's the creator of the Pre-Loved and Gifted Gown Initiative. Most of you know that she's a successful, confident businesswoman, but what you don't know is that her journey to success hasn't always been smooth running, and she has faced so many challenges along the way, especially with regards to her mental health. Now, the underlying theme of this podcast is mental health, so I'm interested to get into the mind of her today to find out about her journey to success, how she struggled, her challenges, but most importantly, how she has managed to overcome them and what she does today to stay on top form and in optimum condition. So please welcome Rhianne Downie Hurst.
Hurst, yes.
To the
Thank
podcast
you.
Today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time. So Rio, take us back. What is your backstory? Where are you from? When did you move to the Middle East? And when did your entrepreneurial journey start?
Sure. So, my backstory. So, I am the daughter of a single mum who is from Sri Lanka. And my dad is a narcissistic alcoholic. So, basically, those are my parents. And I was always really into kind of theatre, acting, music, and I really pursued a career in that in my younger years. But it was very fickle and up and down, and it wasn't for me in many ways, and it was for me in many ways, but the wasn't overrided the was. And to make ends meet whilst I was off gallivanting and auditioning for things, I sold. So I sold everything from double glazing to classified ads in newspapers. And I actually found I was quite good at it. So
I was just about to say, I could see that you would be a very good
salesperson. Yeah, and I think, that word salesperson is often kind of looked down upon, but I think it's one of the, most important strength that you can have in business as well, in general, if you're an entrepreneur. So it definitely put me in good stead for the future. And yeah, so how I got into kind of publishing and media, I landed a job selling ad space in magazines for a publishing house, and I kind of built my way up the ladder until I had a team that I was managing and things. And I was still doing the acting things on the side and the singing on the side, but I enjoyed making money. I enjoyed not having to struggle. And then everything just kind of went to pot overnight. My 8-year relationship ended. I lost a job for a government newspaper.
How long ago was this?
Gosh, this was over 15 years ago.
You were living in London?
When I was living in London, yeah. I was working for a government newspaper, and I was hitting all my targets and bringing in accounts that these guys had been trying to get in for years. And here I was, this, I'm just being very honest, they were all private school educated white boys, and I was the only woman of colour there who hadn't gone to private school, and I think I ruffled a few feathers. And they sacked me, and they told me the reason we're sacking you is because you can't get to grips with the terminology of this institute, which I found strange. I didn't understand what they meant.
Even though your sales figures were
I brought in
excellent.
accounts that some of the guys had been trying to get in for 2 years. So I just didn't understand. I was hitting my targets. I didn't understand where that came from. It confused me. But so that happened, my relationship ended, and I found myself in a kind of strange place, not quite knowing where I fit in life. And then it just dawned on me, there's a whole world out there. What am I doing here? Like, I can go anywhere in the world. I have this skill that is transferable. And I just asked my brother, can I just borrow your Apple Mac at the time, like the old school ones, and look for jobs? And he said, yeah. So I just started applying for all these international advertising sales jobs, and I got a call, 2 interviews on Skype later. I was flying over to Dubai, never been here, didn't know what I was doing, sold my car, sold all my possessions, and started a job with ITP Publishing at the time, or still is, one of the biggest publishers in the region. So that was my journey on how I got to Dubai.
Interesting. How long ago did you land in Dubai?
In May next year, it'll be 11 years. So just past 10 years in Dubai, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So not only since you've been in Dubai have you founded your own company, several companies, you've got married and you've had a child.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. Yeah, so, I mean, what happened is I worked my way up the ladder with ITP, then I moved to CPI, and I became a bit more of a rounded salesperson because they could see that I was quite good at marketing as well, so understanding how that magazine can reach the right audience. So it's all very well having a lovely magazine, but if no one's reading it, what benefit is that to the advertiser, right? And I was definitely like a pusher, pioneerer, or whatever the word is, of digital at the time. 8 years ago, I was very much, we need to be on Instagram. We need a website. We need to launch our social media accounts. I was the one who was always pushing for that. And I came up, when I was with CPI, the CEO of CPI Publishing, Dominic D'Souza, who is now in heaven, God bless him, God rest his soul, he was very much a mentor to me. And he created what I feel to be like an incubator of entrepreneurship. So very much encouraging people within a work environment to become entrepreneurs, to partner with him to create projects and launch projects. So I thought, right, I've got this background in performing arts. There's obviously a big events industry here. I want to launch a platform that connects people in the performing arts and entertainment industry. I don't want it to be a magazine. So I started the business plan, ready to pitch it to CPI, and then I got engaged. So basically, in between all of that, I met the love of my life, and he proposed. And then I had to navigate the wonderful world of planning my wedding. And back then, it wasn't so easy, really, to find suppliers that appealed to me. So it just hit me like a ton of bricks. A wedding website. Why is there no wedding website in this region? Because Dubai is a very popular destination for weddings. A lot of expatriates get married here, obviously locals. I'm using all these global websites, but nothing exists here. Why? And I was like, no, I'm going to launch. I said to Dom, what about a wedding website? And he said, yes, let's do a print magazine. And I said, no, not print, because brides don't have time.
So you saw a gap in the market.
Yeah.
What wasn't there that you wanted to be there?
Just access, because the local brides and the local Emirati community have very different tastes and styles to the expatriate community, like Western expats or Indian expats, for example, right? So I felt the market was really geared towards the Emirati community, which it should be, because we're in their land, right? But we can't ignore the fact that there is this big expatriate community. And they don't want to wear big, elaborate bling gowns. They want more elegant, simple, bohemian. They have different tastes. They don't want perfume favors. They want confetti or maybe like little tea bag giveaways and things like that. So things like that were very difficult to find here. But I found them. But they didn't have a platform in which to market themselves. So I understood that there was a need, and also that these vendors and suppliers really needed someone like me to help them, or a platform like Bride Club to help them connect with that audience. So I didn't take a wage for 4 months. That was the agreement with Dom. I had to make it work before we made everything solid. I did everything. I used my savings. They literally gave me a space and a visa, and I went out to market. I tried to understand the industry. I met with top wedding planners. I asked them what they felt was lacking. And I think I convinced about 15 people out of 30 to hand me over their money to list for the first year on my website, basically. And that paid for certain things. And then a year later, I went independent from CPI, no hard feelings. It was just too small fish for them at the time. And I launched Club Media FZE, which is the holding company, because I didn't want to limit myself to just Bride Club. I always knew that I wanted to grow club websites.
So just so I can get clear, BrideclubME is a platform.
It's an online platform
that you created,
yes,
whereby people who have, let's just say, for instance, I was a florist.
Yes.
I could pay you to advertise on your platform.
Yes.
Okay. Is it also, do you also plan weddings? Like if I'm to get married, I could come to you and say, right, will you please organise my wedding for me?
Well, you see, this is how the business has evolved over the 8 years since the launch. So no, we're still not wedding planners, and I have no intention of being a wedding planner. One of my biggest clients are wedding planners who advertise with me. So basically, it's an online platform that facilitates information, advice, tips, and ideas. So it's very heavily content driven. It's not just a directory. The Vendor Club directory is an element of the website, and that's where the brides and even wedding planners use our website to source vendors for wedding events and venues. So basically, what makes us very different as well is that we strictly vet the vendors that are on our website. I mean, anybody can offer to give me money to be on my website, but if they're not trade licensed, experienced, if they don't have a functioning website, social media presence, etc., I won't accept them. So brides know, and wedding planners also know, that when they come to my website, they're going to find quality professional vendors that can execute a wedding, basically. So when you say, are we wedding planners, the business has evolved to now offer a concierge service, which is where we do get more personally involved with the bride and groom and hold their hand a little bit, and where we personally match make them with the right venue and vendors. But we're not there on the day. The wedding planner, they will help conceptualize the event with themes, color schemes. They'll source the vendors. They'll be on the day making sure everything's set up beautifully, logistically, that people are setting up. We don't do any of that.
So what about those vendors who are very, very good at what they do, but they don't have that online presence? They're not very good with the digital marketing side of things.
Yeah. Well, that's why I launched BrideclubME Business.
But you just said then that you wouldn't accept them if they didn't have a following on social media. So I guess that's what I'm getting at.
No. I didn't say if they didn't have a following on social media. I said if they didn't have social media presence. Because in this day and age, in that industry, you have to. Because brides immediately go to your Instagram account. So I would never dream of turning somebody down if they had an Instagram page and only 5 followers. Fine. That's great. You have an Instagram account, you know. You have something that brides can go to. But then I launched BrideclubME business 3 years after launching BrideclubME.com, because vendors would always come to me saying, Rio, how can I increase my following on Instagram? You know, you're good at creating content. How can I do that? Rio, I don't know what to price point my wedding planning services at. Any advice? What are brides looking for? And I found myself sitting down with these people for 2 hours over coffee, basically giving them their marketing plans and their marketing strategies and ideas on how to sell. And I thought to myself, why am I not making money from this? Like, I really enjoy doing this, probably more than I do running Bride Club, actually. And it became a passion of mine to help entrepreneurs in the wedding industry elevate their businesses. Yeah. So I launched BrideclubME Business.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. But Rio, when people look at you and see what you've achieved and your level of success, they may assume that it's been an easy ride for you. Mm-hmm. What people don't see is the pain and quite often the struggle that it's taken to get you to where you are now. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey and about the struggles that you've experienced along the way?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, everybody's definition of success is different, right? So to me, like, the dictionary definition of success is to, I think it's to complete a goal to completion, or like something like that. And to me, like, real success to me is feeling stable and happy, and yes, completing the goals that I set for myself. That to me is success. So I think I've been successful in launching a website, completing it, and serving a purpose. But there are other things that I've done that, you know, haven't been a great success, and, you know, I've learnt many lessons from. But yeah, the journey of being an entrepreneur can be very lonely. Which is why I love all these new co-working initiatives, co-working spaces that are coming up, because it allows you to have that same buzzy environment, but you're still in your own zone, sort of thing. But no, it hasn't been easy at all. My website has been plagiarized word for word, completely copied. And I just remember being in the bath, crying my eyes out, like not believing that somebody could have the audacity to literally rip off my blood, sweat and tears at that time for 3 years and start a business. And that's when I kind of learnt that, you know, not everything's fluffy and there are snakes out there you have to be aware of. And to always have things protected, contracts in place and things like that.
Is that another company in the Middle East?
Yeah, they still exist now.
Copied word for word your website.
Word for word, wow. Everything,
the
to the point where my own name was referenced. Yeah, and that website still exists. They obviously took down the content when we sent them a legal letter. But to this day, I've gotten over it. But to this day, I'm still like, you know, if I ever see them around, I'm just like, whatever. Because I just think it's just wrong to do that. I mean, what I created isn't, you know, I didn't reinvent the wheel. It exists globally, but I put my stamp on it, and all the content is original, and I wouldn't steal content from another platform. So
yeah,
that was difficult.
I think it's one thing I mean, if someone wants to set up and become your competitor, that's entirely up to them. They can do that, and there's nothing you can do about that. But when someone actually goes to your website and cut and paste it and put it onto their website. Yeah. I mean, that's just downright
to the point where
laziness.
All my clients, their listings were copied and pasted, and their images were all pixelized, and I don't know, it was a bit weird, but yeah, I mean, gosh, I have a lot of competition now. I think there are about 4 or 5 other websites like mine that exist, but I think we're all very different, and we bring different things to the table, and it shows that there's a growing market. So competition is actually quite healthy.
What can you bring to the table that the others can't or don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we bring is soul. I know that sounds really cheesy, but it was born out of a passion and out of me being an actual bride, whereas some of my competitors, I think they're a bit more corporate, kind of men in suits, see a market, think it's a great thing to launch, whereas I feel like we're pretty much a heartbeat of the wedding industry. We really genuinely care, And every article that we publish, we think, is this going to help a bride? Like, is she going to read it? Is it going to make her life easier? And we've also evolved as well to create events. So we were the first to kind of put on wedding industry networking events. And we now consult as well. And we work with venues on their product imagery style shoot, corporate videos, basically 360-degree marketing solutions for wedding marketing for venues and vendors, which I don't really think our competitors are doing. So that's, I think evolution is important, and like seeing what is needed and going with that. And again, launching a podcast and video content, because people are consuming information. Before, they would read a 1,000-word article on my website. Now, they want videos. So we're moving into video content and shorter articles.
I think your idea of a podcast is a great idea within your niche. 100%. I mean, podcasts are becoming so much more popular these days.
Yeah.
Because you can literally listen to them anywhere, in the car, when you're taking the dog for a walk, you know, when you're changing your baby's nappy, you know, you can listen to them anywhere, and, you know, and so much more accessible for people.
Exactly.
I don't actually know of any podcasts within your niche.
There are, not here. There are globally, but there are no wedding podcasts here. And, you know, obviously, first to launch the website, first to launch the concierge. I want to get in there now with the podcast.
Absolutely. Get
so
it started.
strategizing. I am strategizing content, figuring out who I'm going to get interviewing. And I want it to cross over to be accessible not only to the industry but also to brides as well. So I kind of want to have two different types of content. So podcasts where we're talking about planning your wedding, what to look out for, questions to ask vendors, things like that, and then talking to the actual innovators in the wedding industry, how they got there, what advice can they give other people wanting to enter the wedding industry. Has the wedding industry become too focused on what everybody else wants, what Pinterest it looks like? Have we forgotten, you know, that it's really about the couple? That I want to address these questions, you know. So you've inspired me to launch one. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, look, my journey's still very much at the beginning.
I know, but I remember talking to you about it, and now you're doing it, which is fantastic.
I'm doing it, and I have to say, I've only just started listening back to them.
Yeah.
Many of my episodes, especially initially, because I initially recorded about 10 episodes and I hadn't uploaded them to podcast.
Okay.
And then I uploaded them and the audio wasn't amazing, and, you know, and you realise, you know, there's so many things when you have your own podcast and you listen to yourself speak, especially for someone that I've always hated the sound of my own voice.
Oh,
so to actually listen to myself.
It's a bit daunting, isn't it?
It is daunting, but you have to do it in order to improve. And
exactly.
You know, I'm 20 episodes under now. This is the second season.
Yeah.
And I've made a few kind of goals this season.
Yeah.
That instead of asking questions that I think everybody wants to hear, I'm kind of going to be a little bit selfish.
Yeah.
And just kind of get out of the interview what I
you
want.
Yeah.
And just to try and go a little bit under the surface as well, but it's a learning curve. It's a
yeah,
complete learning
of course.
curve.
And if you don't take that initial step into the unknown, like I think everybody, I mean, I've got a second website. So Bride Club, we want to launch a series of club websites that focus on lifestyle. I've got a second website which is 4 years overdue. It's 4 years overdue. And during those 4 years, little Facebook groups have popped up around a similar kind of niche, not exactly the same, but I know if I wait any longer, because I'm a perfectionist and because I want it to be perfect and look perfect, and I'm going to miss out, you know.
Yeah,
so
if you don't do it, somebody else will.
Yeah.
And all I can say is definitely before I upload this as a podcast, have your first guest.
Yeah, or for the wedding podcast.
For the wedding podcast.
Yeah.
And all you need initially is, unless you want to go all out and buy the equipment, I can go over what you need. But I've bought a very good digital recorder, the H6, and which is what Tim Ferriss uses for his podcast. Some good mics, but you know, you can get really good audio with lapel mics. So all you need is a couple of lapel mics, and you can record your first podcast from there. And then buy
and
the other
invest
equipment.
as I go.
Yes, yeah.
I think you're very
But
right.
once you
and,
get started, you commit it, and it's out there then.
Yeah. And it suits me because I like talking, as you can tell. I really like talking. I don't particularly like being in front of the camera. I think that comes from kind of singing as well. I always loved to sing, and I could sing, and I toured and stuff with like bands and things as a session singer, but I never really wanted to be the one in the front. So it kind of, that thespian in me, it allows me to be, I don't know how to explain it, like there, but not quite there, you know? So I like podcasts for that.
No, you've definitely got the voice for it.
Oh, thank
Probably
you.
a lot more so than I have.
No, you've got a lovely hypnotizing voice.
I mean, I send people
Very
to
soft
sleep.
and like just, no, it's nice.
Boring.
It's calming.
Okay, so let's talk about struggles a little bit more, because I know the last couple of years in Dubai, especially for business and entrepreneurs, have been somewhat challenging.
Yeah.
How have you what's your experience been, and how have you navigated the twists and the turns?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually did a talk a few months ago with Thrive Women. I don't know if you've heard of Thrive Women.
I have, yeah.
And I actually had the audience in tears, and then I had to crack a few jokes because I felt so guilty. But it was the first time I'd actually really, 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 truly opened up about the struggles that I had faced in my personal life, which then affected my business, right? So from 2016, I would say even up until now, have probably been the most testing and trying years of my life. So basically, whilst trying to run and manage and maintain a business, and deal with business transactions and write and coordinate and go to meetings and events and things like that, my personal life was pretty much collapsing around me. And I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of us deal with that, and nobody would know.
When you say personal life, you mean your marriage, your relationships with friends?
Well, basically, so I had a miscarriage before I had my baby. So that was the first in a series of events that happened. So I had a miscarriage. And then after my miscarriage, my mother tried to take her own life. She took 50 pills. She tried to kill herself, basically. And I watched her be institutionalized and sectioned. And I was in England for a month visiting her every day in a mental hospital, which was really, really hard to deal with and cope with. And since then, she's been in and out of mental hospital. She's had every treatment going. She's had medication. She's had ECT. She's had therapy, and nothing's working. And I'm grieving the loss of the mother that I used to know. So a mother that is outgoing, funny, beautiful, now just literally looking in her eyes and there's nothing. So, I mean, she suffers from she was diagnosed with severe anxiety and depression, and she tried again twice after that to take her own life. So, miscarriage, that happening. My husband was diagnosed with testicular cancer. My stepfather was found dead in his home after 2 weeks. My mum and brother found him. I lost my stepdad. So all of these crazy, and I'm being very honest here, all of these crazy things just started to happen in my life, which were deeply affecting me emotionally. And I was pregnant and just had a baby. So being a new mum, dealing with all these emotions of losing people and grieving, and my husband like having testicular cancer, and thank God he's still here and it was caught early, I still had to maintain this facade of being a professional businesswoman and going into meetings and nobody knowing the pain that was going on deep inside, right? But during that process, I realized what worked for me to cope with my own mental health. Because everybody sees me as this strong person that has her SHIT together, and, you know, they always say, Ria, you're so strong, and you're so this, and you're so that. And, well, I think I've just been raised to be that way with my single mum and, like, having to kind of look after my brother and deal with stuff. I think it's just a defense mechanism. But really, I'm sensitive You know, I cried myself to sleep sometimes. I felt like I was drowning trying to pay the bills while trying to be a mum and deal with my own emotions. So, but nobody would have known that. But what I decided to do was to open up and write about how I feel. And I used Instagram as that platform. And once I did it in drips and drabs. So I spoke about my miscarriage because it was a release. And suddenly my inbox was flooded with friends and family who I didn't even know had had miscarriages. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were going through that, you know. Then I opened up about my husband and what he was going through. And then I opened up about my mum, and it was like a can of worms. But in small, I didn't like drab on about it all the time, talk about it, just little snippets of the reality of my life. And the amount of people that reached out to me and the amount of people that said, thank you for speaking about this topic, was overwhelming. And then I realized that people really, truly appreciate honesty and really, truly appreciate knowing that you struggle and that you aren't Superwoman and that not every, you know, I'm human. Yes, I've got a successful business that on paper looks great, but, you know, even financially, because of all this, my sales went down. Like, I couldn't sell. Like, I just... And that struggled, and I struggled financially to the point where I was thinking of selling the business because I just could not face going out there and pitching and selling, and I couldn't be bothered if someone renewed. Like, I literally just lost, you know, and not unfortunately, but, you know, I'm not married to a millionaire husband who could take care of everything while I deal with my emotions. Like, I pay 50% of the household. I had no choice but to earn money. So yeah, I mean, that's what I went through in those periods of time, and I'm still dealing with the stuff with my mum, and it's very hard. I battle it day by day. I don't personally suffer from any mental health illness, although I think I'm verging on anxiety because I'm constantly worried that something's going to happen to my mum. I'm always worried. Am I going to wake up every day hearing this news about my mum? So what have I done? I've gone to therapy. Like, I've spoken to people. I've sought out affordable therapy options so I can actually release these emotions that I'm feeling. I write. I ask for help. So when I was a new mum, I said to myself, an entrepreneur mum, I said, I'm never going to get a nanny, never. I can do this. I can be a mum and I can run my business because it's all online. No. As soon as I hired my nanny, my life changed. She is my mum, my auntie, my friend, my son's auntie, like everything rolled into one. I don't have that family network around me constantly. I can't just pop Kai into, you know, his auntie's house or his grandma's house. I need help if I'm running a business. And once I stopped being a martyr and accepted that, my life changed. You know, once I accepted that I am not Superwoman, my life changed. So those are kind of how I navigated running a business and dealing with all these things, is opening up, writing about it, getting therapy and getting help.
Interesting. Is there anything that you do on a day-to-day basis? Like, maybe affirmations, meditation, yoga? Is there anything that you do to keep your mind in
check?
Well,
no, typically no. But what I do is I don't wake up in the morning and let's just say, look in the mirror and just say, you are this and you are that. I'm not one of those people. I can't do it. But what I do is I have, maybe I could call it like binge doing that. So I would go for a while not doing it. But then, for example, last week I could feel myself teetering on losing my crap, you know. And I said to my husband, I need a night away by myself with a book to be by the pool. And I need to be in Bastakia because I love the creativity of Bastakia and the calmness of Bastakia, the XVA art hotel. I just want to read a book and write, and I need to be on my own. And I get moments like that. And I just do it. I don't feel guilt. It was the first time I'd ever left my son overnight, really, since he was born. But it felt right. It felt like it was the right time. I felt emotionally able to do so, and I knew that in order to be a good mum, I needed that time away from everybody and just for myself. And so I did it, and I came home refreshed. It's like I was feeding my soul. So when I feel like I need to feed my soul, I always find myself going down to the old side of Dubai and kind of just taking in the arabesque buildings and art, and I like going to see galleries and eating like wholesome food, and to me that's feeding my soul. And I think it's really important that I do that regularly. Don't do it every day, but regularly to keep my mind in check, and that's what I do. Yeah.
Interesting. It's so interesting, because quite often, people think that your journey has just been quite smooth running, and they see and they think, they have an image and a perception of who you are and what you are, and quite often, people just don't understand like the struggles that we've all been through. One thing that I've realised a lot is that our outer world is a direct reflection of our inner world. So, negative self-talk, this dialogue that we quite often kind of, and I'm kind of guilty of it, probably just as guilty of it as anyone. It just one. I've made a commitment to myself that basically, if it's something I wouldn't say to my best friend, one of your girlfriends, then just don't speak that way about yourself. Don't speak so negatively.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think, when I launched BrideclubME business and I started to do the consultancy, I thought, God, am I in the wrong job? Do I need to be a therapist? Because quite a few of my clients started crying in front of me, just breaking down, and I had no clue what they were going through. And obviously I can't, client privacy and stuff, I can't talk about their problems, but, marriage issues, trying to juggle motherhood and entrepreneurship, worrying about their husband's job, all these sort of things came up, and I was like, wow, I wouldn't have looked at you and thought that. I had no clue you were dealing with that. That's the thing. It's like we never know what one person's going through, and we have to be, careful with our words and how we treat people, because people are fragile. I don't care what people say. We're fragile beings. We're sensitive. And I have to catch myself, because I can be quite blunt talking and straight talking sometimes.
Me too. But another thing is, and I'm not kind of underestimating anything that anyone's experienced or that you've experienced or anybody else. But everybody has a past.
Exactly.
We've all got a story. We've all got crap that's gone on.
Yeah.
Your boyfriend left you, or your husband had an affair. You were raped as a child. As tragic as these things are, it's actually happened to a lot of people.
It has, and it's very, very scary. But the amount of people that have gone through some kind of trauma in their life. But it's how you deal with it, I think.
Exactly. And the more that we let that ruin our lives, it's happened to everyone out there. So in a way, it's just like, come on, just roll your sleeves up maybe and get on with it. Or does that sound really harsh? Well,
it depends. So to me, there's different types of kind of things that people go through. So if it's like circumstantial depression, where something's happened in your life and obviously it's put you off balance, you are allowed to feel angry and to feel pain and sadness. That's not the issue. It is, how do you now deal with this situation and move forward? Okay? But then there are people that are clinically sick, and they really need help before it gets to the point with what my mum did, If she had dealt with her issues and sought help early, this could have been prevented. But it festered, and this is what I refuse to do. This is why I'm self-conscious and I'm aware of my own mental health. And when I feel like I'm teetering, I do something about it,
Don't you think it's generational as well, though?
Yes.
In that, in your mum's, because it's not, I'm not saying that you are blaming her, because you're not at all, but you can't blame her for not kind of addressing it earlier, because that's how they were raised.
I know.
And her mum probably didn't, our parents, were just doing the best that they could. She was doing the best that they could. Her mum and dad were doing the best that they could.
Yeah.
And things are different. I think it's really exciting the times that we're living in at the moment in terms of the awareness that we have. And it's not just in terms of technology in the way, which is amazing within itself, like the internet and whatever, but it's the awareness that we have deep within us, which is what our parents and our grandparents didn't really have.
Yeah, and I can see that. I can see that whenever I go back to England, and I can see people of a certain age struggling mentally and in other ways physically, because they lived a certain life in the 70s and 60s where, certain things happened that affects your body, and also where things were brushed under the carpet, especially with women and how we were treated back then, or our mothers, and what they accepted and dealt with that as women we will refuse to accept now. And I think that's fantastic. And I think I'm really excited that we're living in an era where we are not accepting, a guy touching us inappropriately, and things like that. But I think every generation deals with its own problems. What we're dealing with in this generation is this false ideology that everything is perfect online, But I like this movement now of actually people are kind of pushing against that, and people are showing their flaws proudly, and people are talking about their mental health issues openly. And I think we were kind of creeping into a dangerous area of, gosh, if people continue just putting filtered images of themselves constantly and making out as though their life is perfect all the time, how's that going to make the younger generation feel that they need to live up to that? I don't know, it's a confusing but also very exciting place to be. It's like such a contradiction. I still can't figure out what I think about this era we live in right now. Part of me is excited and I think it's amazing, and the other part of me is like, oh my gosh, is this going to damage us in the future? I just don't know where we fit.
I think it all comes down to awareness, and that if we have a greater awareness and we execute that, I think life's never going to be easy. It's always going to have its challenges.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of always learning. But I love the fact that mental health is becoming more open. It's not hidden. It's not put under the carpet. My previous guest, she was openly talking about it. But it's interesting. A lot of people still don't. I was chatting to a lady who I'm going to be interviewing, and she has her own company, in digital marketing company, and she herself admitted to me that she'd suffered from mental health problems, and she said, but I don't know if I should talk about it because my clients might not want to do business with me.
That's sad, that's sad, because look, okay, obviously I'm not going to go, if I'd done something pretty out there, I'm not just going to say, right guys, well, this is what I've done, blah blah blah. There's ways of talking about what you've been through, right? There's ways. And yes, I found with Bride Club, because I would never use BrideclubME.com as the platform to talk about my mental health journey, and it's not even really, well, I guess it is, it's more dealing with parents who have severe mental health kind of issues had made me become aware of my own and protecting my own. So it's not as though I had a breakdown or I suffer from depression or anything. It's just that I'm aware that it runs in my genes. And so it's made me more self-aware, and it's also made me an advocate for mental health awareness to prevent people getting to the point where my mum and dad have, right? I've become passionate about it and talking about it. I guess because psychologically maybe I want to save everybody because I can't save my parents, Maybe that's why, but who knows? I'm passionate about it now. But I think that I would never use Bride Club as a platform to talk about it, which is why I openly talk about it on my personal platform. And by chance, some of my clients have seen it And instead of them being put off working with me, they've come to me and they've said, Rio, I really appreciate your honesty, and it's actually made me want to work with you more, because if you can deal with that and run a business and care about your clients, then sign me up. It's actually worked in my benefit, to be honest.
And that's what I think. I do believe that being vulnerable and opening yourself up and just being authentic and being you, it attracts more people to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they see you, I mean, I'm just, not talking about you individually here, but, I really hope that when I do speak to this lady that she does open up. And like I say, there's a time and there's a place, and there's certain things that you would disclose and there's certain things that you wouldn't, but, and there's certain ways that you would say it.
Yeah,
but it's
maybe
just
she's
about
not
creating
ready.
an awareness.
I think it's important to be ready, because I didn't immediately start talking about everything. It took me a little while to feel brave enough to do it, but then once I did it, it just opened up like this Pandora's box. It was therapy to me, and it helped. And speaking to other people who had gone through similar things that I had gone through helped as well, because you feel like you're not alone. It's not that you take pleasure in other people's pain, it's that you take comfort in knowing that other people are dealing with what you're dealing with, and that you're not alone. Even if another business who seemingly looks like they're just killing it, and we meet for coffee and they're like, Jesus, man, I'm not getting paid. And you're like, damn, but you're going through what I'm going through. Okay, how are we going to deal with this? Let's talk about it. What systems do we put in place to make sure people pay us on time? It creates conversation. It opens dialogue.
I know. We think that people's lives are perfect. And there's a girl who I used to work with a few years ago at a company. It was when I lived in Dubai, and she's got like a 3-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And she might be listening to this. I don't know if she listens to my podcast, but I would often see her post pictures about her family on Facebook, and I don't know if I've shared this with you, but I really want kids. So I would but I'm not one of those jealous people. I'm not like one of those people. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do get a little bit envious.
Yeah, and it's a human emotion, it's
someone's
natural.
Got something that you really, really want, and it does kind of like stab you a little bit, but I would never not kind of...
You'd never resent her for
I'd never
it.
resent, and I always used to like her posts and make comments, because I love it when my friends post about their families and their children, or if they've just had a baby.
Yeah.
But I used to... I'm not going to lie, I did feel a little bit envious.
Yeah. And that's a natural emotion.
Even though I was happy for her, I felt really, I did kind of feel quite envious at times. And then I read a Facebook post recently, and it was a sister. This person in particular is in hospital. She's now fighting for her life.
Oh my gosh.
And she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Okay.
So it just kind of puts it into perspective. And that kind of really hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh my God, I've been kind of like following this, this lady, and at times I've kind of like thought to myself, she's so lucky, I wish I'd have got what she's got.
I know, like I wish,
and then this
I regret, I like all these words, like, I mean, I had this kind of feeling when Adam was diagnosed with testicular cancer. This Kai was 6 months old. So first of all, we were like, the first question we asked is this going to affect fertility in case we want more children? And more recently, like, I think Adam's less inclined to want to have a second child, whereas right now I'm in a period where I'm like feeling all sorts of emotions, like feeling guilt that I need to give my son a brother or a sister, and then, I've always had this dream of having a daughter, and, my husband's not on the same page as me, and also, can he? Because you don't actually know until you try whether the chemotherapy has affected fertility, because it could do. I'm obviously not a hen chicken anymore, pushing on 40, so These are all questions that, but then I catch myself saying, I am blessed. I have Kai. Like, I have Kai. I have my son. I'm blessed. And then if I didn't have Kai, well, I'm blessed that my husband's still alive, you know? So that's the thing. It's like we need to kind of always appreciate what we have, and instead of dwelling on what we don't have, you know. And, you know, if you're meant to have a child, you'll have a child. You'll find a way. It will happen, you know.
I do truly believe in that.
Yeah.
So just going back to your business.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap this up soon because we've actually been talking for 50 minutes. And I'm
Wow.
trying to keep these to a minimum. But just going back to your business, economically things have been quite challenging.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean.
How have you kind of...
navigated that.
How have you navigated your way through that?
Yeah. So this time last year, I was seriously considering selling my business. It was tough. I think I signed like 4 deals in the whole of the summer, and it was really, really tough. And actually, it was either sell the business or it was get investment. And we found an investor. We were literally at the point of signing the contract when he said to us, guys, I've looked through the numbers again. It makes no sense because in 4 months you're going to be self-sufficient. It seems to me like you just literally need me to kind of short-term lend you money to get to where you need to be. And actually he was right. But during this conversation and during these meetings, he became somewhat of a mentor. And he planted seeds and ideas in our heads. And one of the ideas was a BrideclubME concierge, which is where we're not just a website anymore that brides can use and find suppliers. We actually physically get involved and handhold and find out what their budget is, their style, when their wedding day is. And then from that, we match make them personally with vendors. Okay. And oh my gosh, it feels revolutionary because brides were like, this is amazing. Like, I don't even have to pay for this. Like, they're not paying for the service. We make our monies from the suppliers. And they're like, this is incredible. Like, you're making my life so much easier. The vendors are getting qualified leads.
So rather than them go onto your site and choose themselves, they come to you.
They still can.
And but you select it for them if they so wish.
Yeah, so they can still navigate the website and find suppliers and do all that. That's still there, and they do. But if they're more kind of, you know, if they're like let's say they're a DIY bride and they're literally doing everything themselves and they don't really want a wedding planner, that's where the concierge service really, really helps because they're getting vetted, qualified recommendations. So, for example, if you're looking for a beach venue that's dry and private in Abu Dhabi, for example, you would come to us and we'd ask you your budget, and then from our network we would say, right, well, these 3 venues match what you're looking for.
That's incredible.
And that saved them so much time
really
and
is
stress.
Incredible.
You know, so we did that, and we haven't overnight become rich. We're still figuring out how we're going to make money from it, but the vendors love it. They love that. Okay, they're not getting thousands of leads a month, but what they are getting are really vetted, qualified, quality leads, and that holds value to them. And so we're signing up more and more and more vendors because of that service. So it's literally saved my business. So
it's
change.
Like a bespoke service.
Yes, but also going with demand and change and not just sticking with what we know, you know. And I think that's what businesses don't adapt. They don't let go of their ego. They don't. And those are the ones that struggle because they're not adapting, like bloggers and influencers. Everybody just thinks an influencer talks about something and gets paid for it. What they don't realise is that influencer is a multi-entrepreneur. What they do is they do content writing for some of their clients. They manage social media for some of their clients. They get paid to do posts. They have various income streams. It's not just about looking pretty, you know.
Some of them.
Some of them. I mean, yeah, but then the ones that do look pretty have spent years mastering how to create content, and they're very good at engaging with people, and that's worth something, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Rhianne, thank you so much for coming
You're welcome.
on today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of insight into your world, and thank you to Rogue Dubai Marina allowing us to film with you today and on future episodes. Thank you.
Thank you.